everyone, and welcome to Time and Money Mastery. We are your co-hosts. I'm Indiana.
And I'm Sam. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our episodes. Now, let's get started. Hello friends, Sam here. I want to talk to-do lists today, specifically why I chose to quit my to-do list addiction for good and what strategy I replaced it with to create some incredible results in my life. So for those of you who don't know, a to-do list is basically a list of things you have to do. There are plenty of variations to these lists. Some people include priority levels, some include due dates, but at its most basic form, it's just a collection of the things you want to do in any given period of time. Now, let me just start by saying that I love creating lists, like love. I made, summer bucket lists for the Christmas holidays in high school. I made an end of high school bucket list, and, I have a list of all the books I want to read, all the movies I want to see, places I want to visit, experiences I want to have, you name it, I've probably listed it. And I also love being organized. And so to-do lists seemed like the perfect marrying of two things that I love, but I was completely wrong. I kept up my to-do list addiction all throughout high school and throughout university. I even employed it into my full-time job and well into the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. But something I didn't realize until very recently is that to-do lists aren't the saving grace or the golden standard that we might have initially believed. We're taught that creating to-do lists are the way to get organized. That at the beginning of the day, you list out all of the things you need to get done so you can systematically, cross them off a list. And, there are some benefits to listing out your to-dos. You can focus on one task at a time and, and you won't forget anything because you've written it all down. It can give you some clarity on what you need to do next so you're not sitting there spending time or effort trying to figure out what to do next. And, getting it all out of your head and onto a page can help lessen that stress because you're not making it bigger in your head. But despite all of these benefits, I still made the decision to quit my to-do list addiction. And if you're listening to this podcast now, then I'm urging you to do the same. Now, you might be wondering, why in the heck would I try to convince you to drop your to-do lists? Isn't any form of organization better than none? Well, that's arguable. And let me tell you why. Now, the number one reason why I quit my to-do list addiction is because to-do lists are never ending. Like, seriously, think about it. If you write a daily to-do list, you'll never actually run out of things you need to do or want to do or think you have to do or should do. If you ask yourself the question, what do I need to do today? Your brain can come up with a ton of answers because that's the question you're asking it. There's a better question that you could be asking, and I'll get to that in a minute, but what you need to know now is this: that life doesn't pause to give you time to do everything on your to-do list. Playing catch up is what makes you feel like you're falling behind. And to-do lists in their most basic form are designed to keep us feeling like there's just so much to do. Now, reason number two why I quit my to-do list addiction is because it makes us feel busier than we actually are, and that's not a good thing. We rely on to-do lists to tell us what we're doing next. And when we do that, we get stuck in a state of do this and then on to the next thing. Rather than making the focus on doing quality and meaningful work or even being present in the moment and giving it your all, to-do lists encourage us to get this done quickly because there's just so much more I have to do. I call it a to-do list addiction because that's often what it can become. Most people that I speak to that love to-do lists or rely on to-do lists say that they do so because they love the feeling of crossing things off their list. And so what happens? They add things to their list that don't need to be there just so that they can cross it off, or they half-ass their way through tasks just so that they can say it's done, tick it off, and move on to the next thing. What is meant to be a tool to help us perform at our best becomes a thing that we end up being controlled by. And, reason number three why I quit my to-do list addiction is because it puts us in a perpetual state of feeling like we're running out of time. One of my absolute worst feelings, I hate feeling like I'm running out of time. You can use it to motivate you sometimes, to make you have that sense of urgency that helps you push forward. But when it becomes something you rely on or something that you're just in constantly, it can really take a toll on you mentally, but also physically as well. During a ladies coaching program called Unleash Her Power Within, One of the women in the group typed something, into our Zoom chat box, and it literally changed my life. She said, "The universe isn't in a rush, you are." Like, literally mind blown. The universe isn't in a rush, you are. And I realized in that moment that a good majority of the things that were on my to-do list felt urgent and pressing and super important. And it only felt that way because of a self-imposed deadline. Granted, there are some external deadlines that we don't have any control over. But in speaking to fellow dreamers, I'm realizing that it's often the deadlines we give ourselves that stress us out the most. So one of my daily incantations has become, "The universe isn't in a rush and neither am I." It's not an invitation to be lazy or to relinquish the responsibility I have over my own life, but rather it's a reminder that I can work hard, but also trust that there is still time. And so all of this might be sounding pretty convincing. At this point, you might be saying, "Yep, cool, Sam, to-do lists are crap. So what happens now?" Well, like any bad habit or addiction, it needs to be replaced by something more empowering. And so what I've learned to do is choose daily outcomes over daily actions. So what exactly does this look like? Well, basically, you ask yourself a better question, the one I mentioned earlier. And rather than asking yourself, "What do I have to do today?" you ask yourself the question, "What is the most important thing for me to get done today?" Choose one thing, one daily focus. And we choose one because there will always be things fighting for your attention. There's a Confucius quote that states, I think it's Confucius, that states, "He who chases two rabbits catches neither." The challenge is to choose the most important thing. It's not that you're choosing one action and you only take one action for the whole day and then you laze around for the rest of the day, but rather you have one focus and a number of actions you can choose from to help you achieve that outcome. So let me give you an example so you know what I mean. If my outcome for the day was to organize my room, I could break down that outcome into a number of things like wash my sheets, fold my clothes, go through my closet, go through my books, throw out old papers that I've been hoarding, whatever else. But rather than having 10 items on a to-do list, I have one clear focus with a number of steps that I can take to achieve that one focus. One outcome versus 50 to-dos allows our brain to chunk this information, and it helps us feel a little less overwhelmed. So rather than saying, "Oh, I have so much I have to do today," you can be like, "Oh, I have one thing I need to do today. That's to organize my room. And I'm going to do this by doing X, Y, and Z." Even though there might still be a number of actions you want to take, you're perceiving your day as having one focus, organizing my room, rather than the 50 tasks. And we almost trick our brain into thinking we don't actually have a lot to do. We only have one thing. And it's pretty cool. And honestly, it took a little bit of time for me to be able to implement this in my own life, because a part of me was like, "No, but I still have 5 other things that feel just as important." But I promise you that if you spend some focused time on one task, majority of the time, not always, but majority of the time, you will find you'll get it done in less time, with less overwhelm, and even significantly less effort. And you end up being able to do more things with your day anyway. So I found that in employing this strategy, I have one focus. I start off the day with one focus. And then halfway through the day, I can choose to relax for the rest of the day if I want to, or I can pick up a second focus, and I can do so with all of me without feeling distracted or stressed or overwhelmed, because I know that no matter what happens with the second outcome, I've already achieved that one focus for that specific day. Now, this works on a day-to-day basis, but how do you choose the best thing to focus on for any given day? Now, one of my favorite things to do, and yes, I can hear some of my friends calling nerd at me when I say this, but one of my favorite things to do is my Sunday planning routine. Every Sunday I block out about 30 to 60 minutes to go through a number of things that help me envision the week ahead. And in a future episode, I'll actually go through and walk you through this Sunday planning routine. But for now, all you need to know is this. Sunday planning allows you to make plans as your best self, not as your tired or your stressed self or your overwhelmed self or your lazy self, without being in the thick of it, being in the moment or feeling stressed or tired with people fighting for your attention. Engaging in a Sunday planning routine allows you to pick your main outcome for each day in advance. And you can do this with the due dates and deadlines in mind because you're looking at your week from like a bird's eye view as opposed to being there in the moment, waking up and like, oh, I'm so tired. I probably should exercise and I have that meeting later and I'm going out for dinner with my friends and what am I going to focus on today? You're already using so much of your mental processing power and energy trying to figure that out that by the time you actually start, it's going to be significantly harder. And I know that's something that I used to experience all of the time. So Sunday planning has really changed the game for me. It allows you to make time for what's important rather than what's urgent. And it'll also encourage you to make space to produce your best work without the stress of feeling like you're running out of time. Okay, so to summarize that, I quit my to-do list addiction and I strongly, strongly urge you to do the same because to-do lists cause a crap ton of stress. There is a better way. I encourage you to choose daily outcomes over daily actions and to utilize a Sunday planning routine, which I will take you through in a future episode, to be able to have a vision for what you want your week to go through and making those plans as your best self. Now, if you want us to cover a specific topic on the podcast, follow the link in the show notes. Either record a question in a voicemail or submit a question through our form.
So that's a wrap. If you loved today's episode, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and let us know why you loved it.
If you know someone who needs to hear this, then send it their way and share it to your stories, tagging us at Time Money Mastery.
Feel like you're wanting just a little more? Jump on over to our Facebook community. You can find the link in the show notes.
That's all from us today, fam. We'll see you soon.